From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday departed for Hanoi for a two-day state visit to Vietnam. In his departure speech, the president said, his visit to Vietnam will not only further strengthen the bilateral ties of both countries, but also strengthen maritime cooperation, trade, and investment. President Marcos Jr. is scheduled to meet with President Vo Van Thuong, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, and Chairman of the National Assembly Vuong Dinh Hue. The chief executive will also have an opportunity to meet the Filipino community there. Formal diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Vietnam span over 47 years since its formal establishment on July 12, 1976, while the two countries elevated their relations to a strategic partnership in 2015. Vietnam is home to around 7,000 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs. Let's listen to the departure speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
I will be embarking on a state visit to Vietnam upon the gracious invitation of His Excellency Vo Van Thuong, President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. It is important to undertake my first state visit of the year to Vietnam, a fellow ASEAN member and our only strategic partner in the ASEAN region, to reaffirm our commitment in further strengthening bilateral relations. During my visit, I shall meet with the President of Vietnam, Vo Van Thuong, the Prime Minister of Vietnam, Pham Minh Chinh, and the Chairman of the National Assembly of Vietnam, Vuong Dinh Hue. And maritime cooperation will be one of the cornerstones of the strategic partnership which we are going to forge, and that we hope to strengthen this aspect during my visit to promote peace and stability in our region. I will also discuss cooperation in defense and security, trade and investments, education, tourism, as well as regional and multilateral issues of concern. I will also meet with the business sector to explore how we can further strengthen trade and investments between the Philippines and Vietnam. I strongly believe that we have a vast array of opportunities, especially in a post-pandemic world. I am looking forward to meeting with also our kababayans in Vietnam, as is our custom, most of whom have significantly contributed to the social tapestry of Vietnam in the same fashion as the Vietnamese community here in the Philippines has contributed to the tapestry of our society. Approximately 7,000 Filipinos are working and residing all over Vietnam and have had a hand in improving our image abroad. Most of them are professionals, including teachers who have been shaping the minds of future generations. I hope that they will be able to continue to exhibit the best of Filipino values, and that the state visit will result in lasting opportunities for them and for our country. I'm confident that this state visit will bring our relations with Vietnam to greater heights. Nearly 50 years have passed since we established relations with Vietnam, and I believe that we will usher in a new era of friendship and cooperation between our two countries.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. arrived in Vietnam on Monday afternoon. The Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, said that the President is accompanied by First Lady Louise Liza Araneta Marcos and the Philippine delegation. The plane carrying President Marcos and the First Lady arrived at around 3:05 in the afternoon Vietnam time at the Noi Bai International Airport, where they were warmly welcomed by the Vietnamese officials. President Marcos Jr. then visited the Vingroup company who is bringing its electric vehicles or EVs and battery manufacturing facility to the Philippines. Vingroup is Vietnam's largest private company with a total market cap amounting to 21.1 billion US dollars as of April 2023 through its subsidiary VinFast, which has a valuation at 15 billion US dollars. VinFast plans to sell and launch its EVs in the Philippines through dealership business by April 2024. The company expressed interest to engage in the manufacture or assembly of completely knocked down or CKD EVs, depending on the outcome of its market tests. President Marcos told Vingroup executives, led by Chairman Pham Nhat Vong and Vice Chair Nguyen Viet Quang, that right now, the specification to those vehicles is being finalized and the government is consolidating the operators and drivers into cooperatives. After the meeting, the chief executive and the Philippine delegation met with the Filipino community to personally thank them for their contributions to strengthen the connections between the Philippines and Vietnam, which serves as a home to some 7,003 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs. In his speech, President Marcos Jr. said that Vietnam remains an important rice trade partner, is hoping to achieve self-rice sufficiency in the near future. The Philippine president said that until that day comes, the country is making a trade agreement with Vietnam in order to guarantee its rice supply. Let's listen to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during his meeting with the Filipino community in Vietnam.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo na ngayong gabi na ito. Alam ko na marami sa inyo, malayo pa ang pinanggalingan at lumiban pa sa inyong mga trabaho upang makasama natin sa araw na ito. Lubos ang aking pasasalamat sa inyong malugod na pagsalubong at pagsuporta sa atin. Kaya sinigurado ko na ang Filipino community ang una kong makasama dito sa pagbisita ngayon sa Vietnam. Andito tayo sa Vietnam para sa isang state visit. Ang Vietnam ay isa sa pinakamahalagang bansa na kaagapay natin dito sa Timog Silangan Asya at natatanging strategic partner ng Pilipinas sa ASEAN. Katulad ng Pilipinas, ang Vietnam ay isa sa mga mabilis na umuusbong na ekonomiya sa ating rehiyon. Nandito tayo upang mas lalong patibayin at palakasin ang pagtutulungan natin para sa ikabubuti ng ating dalawang bansa. Marami ang maaaring maitulong ng Vietnam sa paglago at pagyaman ng ating ekonomiya. We are happy that Vietnam's economy continues to grow and provide a positive impact to the ASEAN region. Ang kanilang masiglang ekonomiya at industriya ay katuwang ng Pilipinas sa pag-unlad sa pamamagitan ng ating active and sustainable partnership on trade and investment. Ang pinakamalaki lagi nating inaasahan pagka tayo ay nagkukulang ng bigas sa Pilipinas ay ginalapitan natin lagi ang Vietnam. Ngayon, pinapatibay na natin, sana yung produksyon natin ay dahan-dahang aakyat, o wag na dahan-dahang aakyat agad. Ngunit, hanggat dumating yung araw na yun, ay ganun, gumagawa tayo ng mga trade agreement sa kasamang Vietnam para matiyak naman na meron tayong supply sa Pilipinas. I am proud to note also that there are several notable Filipino brands that have established their presence here in the Vietnamese market for a few years now. Some of them have been here since the mid-90s. I know they have been providing quality products and reliable service to Vietnamese consumers. Ang aking pagbisita ngayon sa Vietnam ay isang magandang pagkakataon para makahanap pa ng mas maraming investment dito sa bansa, mapanatili ang ating magandang relasyon pangkomersyo at mapagting ang ating pakikipag-ugnayan na politikal, seguridad sa bahaging ito sa Timog Silangang Asya. Isang patunay na malapit na ugnayan ng ating dalawang bansa ay ang tinatawag nating people-to-people connections. At kayo, ang mga Pilipino na nandito sa Vietnam, ang patunay kung gaano kalapit ang ating mga bansa. Noong dekada 90, marami tayong mga professional na nakipagsapalaran dito sa Vietnam at tumulong sa kanilang pagbangon sa ilalim ng programang Doi Moi, yung pronounced Doi Moi. Kasama ang ating mga ininyero sa mga tumulong sa pagtataguyod ng infrastruktura dito sa bansang ito. Yung iba sa inyo ay tuluyan ng naninirahan dito. Kahit saan sulok ng mundo na mapuntahan ko, ang mga nakakausap kong mga hari, pangulo, mga punong ministro, lahat sinasabi sa akin na magaling, masisipag at maaasahan ang mga Pilipino. Hindi ako magugulat kung sa mga susunod na araw ay maririnig ko muli ang paghahanga ng ating mga kasamahan dito sa Vietnam sa ating mga kababayan. Kaya't ako'y lubos na nagpapasalamat sa inyong lahat dahil napapadali ang aking trabaho dahil sa magandang reputasyon na itinaguyod nyo sa pamamagitan ng inyong sipag at tiyaga dito sa Vietnam. Siyempre, hindi natin nakakalimutan ang patuloy na pagsuporta sa ating bansa ng mga overseas Filipino dito sa Vietnam. Ito ay sa pamamagitan sa inyong patuloy na pagpupursige at pagpapadala ng pera sa inyong mga pamilya sa Pilipinas. At ang mga remittances na ito ay hindi lamang nakakatulong sa inyong pamilya, barangay o bayan. Tulong na rin po ito sa ating buong bansa. Bilang pasasalamat, ako at ang ating kasamahan dito sa kabinete ay magpupursiging iahon ang ating bayan mula sa kahirapan na naranasan natin sa panahon ng pandemya. Masasabi ko sa inyo na lumalakas na ang ating ekonomiya ngayon. In 2022, our gross domestic product, which is the size of the economy, increased by 7.6%, well above our target of 6.5%. The third quarter of last year, our GDP increased by 5.9%. It was spurred on by the robust domestic consumption, by the continued expansion of our industry and service sectors. Your government will continue to strive for a better future for every Filipino. We know of your sacrifices and the hardships that you have been through. We are one with you in achieving your aspirations for a better future for your children, your loved ones, your communities, and your country. Batid natin na sa araw-araw ng paggising natin, iisa ang ating pangarap para sa ating mga mahal sa buhay at para sa ating bayang sinilangan. Ang mabuhay ng may dangal, may kapayapaan at may kasaganahan. Kaparte ko sa inyong mga pagsisikap at dama ko ang inyong malasakit sa ating kapwa Pilipino. Nakikipag-alyansa tayo sa mga bansa gaya ng Vietnam upang maabot natin ang mga pangarap na ito sa pamamagitan ng mahusay na pakikipag-ugnayan sa larangan ng seguridad, kalakalan at ekonomiya. Magtiwala kayo na patuloy na sumusuporta sa ating pamahalaan sapagkat ang pangarap ninyo ay pangarap ko rin. Kaya't maraming salamat sa inyong sakripisyo na nagpapasikat sa ating bansa. Hindi lamang sa pamamagitan ng mga remittance na naging napakalaking bahagi na ng ating ekonomiya, kung hindi sa inyong pagpaganda ng reputasyon at ng pangalan ng Pilipinas sa buong mundo. Sikat na tayo at kinikilala na maaasahan, na hindi na kailangan masyadong pagsabihan at alam na ang ginagawa. Doon nga sa ibang lugar, ang biro sa Pilipino, yan yung mga Pinoy, the king and queen of overtime. Dahil lahat ng overtime kinukuha ng mga Pinoy. Dahil dyan, ay gumanda talaga ang reputasyon natin. Hindi lang bilang mababait na tao, hindi lamang dahil magagaling kumanta at sumayaw, kung hindi magaling na magtrabaho at tapat sa kanilang ginagawa, sa kanyang ginagawa. Ngunit hindi kinakalimutan ang bayang Sinilangan, hindi kinakalimutan ang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat sa inyo at sama-sama tayo sa pagsulong ng Pilipinas. Mabuhay ang lahing Pilipino, mabuhay kayong lahat.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Vietnamese President Vo Van Thong on Tuesday convened for a bilateral meeting to bolster relations centered on key areas such as maritime cooperation, defense, trade, agriculture, and culture. During their talks, both leaders agreed to further strengthen and develop their strategic partnership ahead of its 10th anniversary in 2025 and the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations in 2026. The Philippine President and Vietnamese President agreed to deepen economic relations and encourage joint initiatives between the two countries. They emphasized the importance of increasing the volume of two-way trade and investment, including through leveraging on the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement or ATIGA and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP in promoting more integrated supply chains among companies from the two economies. Both sides agreed to work closely on creating favorable conditions for smooth trade flows in order to achieve the trade target of $10 billion at the earliest, as well as enhancing the business environment to make it more conducive to invest in sectors of interest to both countries. The two presidents also discussed cooperation in areas such as agriculture, particularly in rice trading, market access for agricultural products, food security, energy security, infrastructure development, education, transportation management, innovation, tourism, connectivity, science and technology, and environmental protection, among others. The leaders emphasized the importance of enhancing cooperation in education, culture, tourism, healthcare, people-to-people exchanges, cooperation between localities, and promoting the role of each other's friendship organizations in order to strengthen their people's bond, increase mutual understanding, boost connectivity, enrich cultural diversity, and promote the overall relations. They also agreed to strengthen existing maritime cooperation mechanisms, notably the Joint Commission on Maritime and Ocean Affairs at the Deputy Minister level, the hotline communication mechanism between Coast Guard authorities of both countries, among others, and to adopt other measures to ensure the safety and security of fishermen from both countries, as well as to solve amicably the unexpected incidents at sea. President Marcos Jr. and President Thong emphasized the importance of maintaining peace, stability, maritime security, safety, and freedom of navigation in and over flight above the South China Sea. They called for exercise of self-restraint in the conduct of activities that would complicate or escalate disputes and affect regional peace and stability, and avoidance of unilateral acts that can change the status quo and increase tensions, as well as the peaceful settlement of dispute without resorting to the threat or use of force in accordance with international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. They reaffirmed their commitment to ensuring the full and effective implementation of the 2002 ASEAN-China Declaration on the Conduct, or DOC, of parties in the South China Sea in its entirety, and working towards the early conclusion of an effective and substantive Code of Conduct or COC in the South China Sea that is in accordance with international law, particularly the 1982 UNCLOS. In this regard, they urged the promotion of an environment that is conducive to the COC negotiations.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Vietnam President Vo Van Thong on Tuesday witnessed the exchange of bilateral documents in various fields, including rice trade cooperation, incident prevention and management in the South China Sea, agriculture, and cultural cooperation. Among those signs include the Memorandum of Understanding or MOU on Rice Trade Cooperation, Understanding on Incident Prevention and Management in the South China Sea or SCS, MOU on Cooperation in Agriculture and Related Fields, MOU between the Philippine Coast Guard or PCG and the Vietnam Coast Guard or VCG on maritime cooperation, and Cultural Cooperation Program between the National Commission for Cultural and the Arts or NCCA of the Republic of the Philippines and the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam for the period of 2024 to 2029. The Presidential Communications Office or PCO said that the MOU on rice trade cooperation will create a rice cooperation framework for both countries to ensure a stable food supply amid the impact of calamities, natural disasters, climate change, among others. Under the MOU, Vietnam agreed to supply the Philippines through both parties' private sector with white rice amounting to 1.5 million to 2 million metric tons per year until 2028 at a competitive and affordable price. On incident prevention and management in the SCS, both nations agreed to enhance coordination regarding maritime issues bilaterally within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN and with other dialogue partners. The Philippines and Vietnam also agreed to intensify efforts in promoting trust, confidence, and understanding through dialogue and cooperative activities. The MOU on cooperation in agriculture and related fields, meanwhile, will intensify the collaboration of the two nations in the fields of agriculture, rural development, and other related fields, as well as establish 19 areas of cooperation including high-value crops, livestock and aquaculture, farm management and sustainability, smart agriculture and aquaculture technology, research trainings, and exchanges of experts. Meantime, the MOU on maritime cooperation is aimed at strengthening the understanding, mutual trust, and confidence between the two parties through the development of a joint Coast Guard committee to discuss common issues and interests between the PCG and VCG, including measures to ensure the safety and security of fishermen from both countries. A hotline mechanism will be established between the PCG and VCG to facilitate the communication. The Philippines and Vietnam also agreed to expand its cultural exchanges and strengthen friendly relations through the Cultural Cooperation Program, in accordance with the cultural agreement signed between the two nations in 1998.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday reaffirmed the country's position to settle the territorial disputes in the South China Sea or SCS in a peaceful manner. The Philippine President said this during his separate meetings with Vietnamese President Vo Van Thong and Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh in Hanoi. President Marcos said the Philippines wants to address these issues with China and all other claimants through peaceful dialogue and consultations. The chief executive, however, expressed dismay under China's unilateral and illegal actions that violate the Philippines' sovereignty, sovereign rights and jurisdiction, and exacerbate tensions in the South China Sea. Despite China's aggressive actions involving Chinese and Philippine vessels, President Marcos Jr. said the Philippines' stance on the SCS has been consistent, clear, and firmly anchored in the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. President Marcos said the Philippines is committed to work with other like-minded states to ensure a rules-based international order in the Asia-Pacific region governed by international law. The President also expressed support for Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN centrality, and the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific as the foremost regional framework and as the architecture for collective peace, stability, and prosperity.
Dateline Malacañang.
The relationship between Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Vice President Sara Duterte remains the same. This was emphasized by President Marcos despite the negative statements released by some members of the Vice President's family against the President. In a media interview in Hanoi, Vietnam, the chief executive said his relationship with Vice President Duterte has not changed, especially since the Vice President did not say anything against him. President Marcos Jr. also emphasized that Duterte will remain the Secretary of the Department of Education, or DepEd, under his administration, despite the conflict between the Dutertes and Marcoses. The Philippine President said the Uniteam Party still remains, especially since the Uniteam is the unification of all the political forces in the Philippines that have come together for the good of the country.
It's exactly the same because she hasn't said anything of that nature, and wala naman siyang sinasabi na ganyang klase, so hindi naman nagbabago.
You just heard Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. enumerated the outcomes of his two-day state visit to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. In his arrival statement early Wednesday morning, the President discussed his meetings with Vietnamese President Vo Van Thong, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, and Chairman of the National Assembly Vuong Dinh Huê. President Marcos Jr. said his visit further strengthened the Philippines' strategic partnership with Vietnam, the country's only strategic partner in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN region. Let's listen to the arrival statement of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Magandang umaga po. I am pleased to inform you and the Filipino people of the outcomes of the state visit to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. The state visit aimed to further strengthen our strategic partnership with Vietnam, Vietnam being our only strategic partner in ASEAN, and further to explore areas of cooperation while building on existing ones. I met with His Excellency Vo Van Thong, President of Vietnam, and we discussed areas of cooperation including defense, maritime, trade and investment, economic, education, tourism, and culture. We also witnessed the exchange of several agreements, including on rice, agriculture, culture, and maritime cooperation. I also met with other leaders of Vietnam, the Prime Minister of Vietnam and the Chairman of Vietnam's National Assembly. We discussed the strengthening of bilateral relations through people-to-people exchanges, parliamentary cooperation, and many other areas of collaboration. On trade and investment, we have successfully safeguarded the interests of Filipino businesses operating in Vietnam by providing them with a platform to voice their experiences, plans, and challenges at the very highest level. We want to assure them that the Philippine government stands ready to support their endeavors in competing in foreign markets. In my dialogue with Vietnamese business leaders, they expressed interest in expanding their businesses in the Philippines, as well as exploring cooperation with our business sector in various traditional and non-traditional economic activities. Furthermore, we have engaged in discussions with the Vingroup company to explore a collaboration in the fields of AI, medical courses, and scholarships for Filipino students. Our shared objectives include active participation in the electric vehicle and battery supply chains. I had the pleasure, of course, to speak with the Filipinos living in Vietnam, and I expressed my appreciation for their continued good work in projecting a very positive image of the Philippines in Vietnam. I acknowledge the sacrifice that they have made for their families, and I lauded them for the contributions to the socio-economic development of the Philippines and of Vietnam. I gave them my assurances that my administration will continue to strive for the betterment of all Filipinos in the Philippines and abroad.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Wednesday said that top leaders of Vietnam praised Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s leadership for posting high economic growth rates despite the global challenges in the world market. In a statement, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Secretary Chaloy Garfield said, Vietnamese President Vo Van Thong, Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh, and Vietnamese National Assembly Chairman Von Dinh Huay believe the Philippines is in good hands under the leadership of President Marcos Jr. During his meeting with the Philippine President on his second-day state visit to Vietnam on Tuesday, the Vietnamese President lauded President Marcos's governance that steered the Philippines to its remarkable socio-economic, foreign policies, security, and defense achievement. President Thong also acknowledged a lot of breakthroughs for economic development since the chief executive assumed office in June of 2022. Prime Minister Chinh, on the other hand, said, Vietnam wants to learn from President Marcos's economic strategy and leadership style, saying these should be emulated by the Vietnamese leaders. Chinh also expressed appreciation for President Marcos's role in promoting and creating traditions for businesses from the Philippines to grow that, in turn, contribute to the socio-economic development of the country. Meanwhile, Chairman Huay also echoed the Vietnamese President and Prime Minister's remarks, noting the significant changes in the Philippine economy under the leadership of President Marcos. The Philippine economy grew by 5.6% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2023, making the Philippines the second fastest among major emerging economies in the region, with Vietnam being the fastest at 6.7%.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, on Wednesday said the administration of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will make sure that the 5.678 trillion peso national budget for 2024 will be properly utilized to achieve its goal of transforming the Philippine economy. DBM Secretary Amena Pangandaman said, the 5.6% economic growth rate posted by the country in 2023 is an indication that the government is heading in the right direction to achieve its agenda for prosperity, economic transformation towards inclusivity, and sustainability. The Budget Secretary said that while the administration has successfully brought down deficit and debt levels in 2023, The General Appropriations Act or GAA for fiscal year 2024 will focus on priority projects that will stimulate the economy. Secretary Pangandaman added that the GAA will also help achieve the economic transformation of the country, specifically in social services, agricultural development, and infrastructure development. Pangandaman said the strong economic transformation program is reflective of the objectives of Bagong Pilipinas or New Philippines that includes even vulnerable and far-flung target areas. The 5.6% year-on-year growth rate is lower than the government's 6 to 7% target for 2023. In a separate statement, Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said that despite the lower than expected growth rate, the Philippines remains to be one of the best performing economies in Asia. Balisacan said the government will continue to implement programs and reforms to achieve the 6.5 to 7.5% growth target in 2024. The National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA Secretary added that the administration will focus this year on addressing supply-side constraints, easing investment restrictions, and protecting the purchasing power of Filipino households.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, we would like to invite everyone to come and visit our Facebook page at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You will be able to hear and view our Filipino and English programs, including news updates here in the Philippines. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.